And now, just because you're communicating on it to others, you've put out a press release or some stuff on social media, don't assume that it's known widespread within government. And I'll speak on that a bit more later. But it is a repeated effort, touch a lot of doors, talk to a lot of people, have those conversations. As just because you assume there was some local media coverage, you can't assume everything breaks through now, as I can guarantee almost that we all take our information in different ways. My Twitter feed looks different from anyone else's Twitter feed, what I'm looking at, what I'm reading. And so casting a wide net, reinforcing who you are, those messages, has never been, I think, more challenging, just due to the fact that, again, it goes both ways of governments taking in their information from more and more sources as well. On that casting a wide net and on your messages, would reinforce of when you put this into plan and then you're going about to speak, keep it simple. Again, lots of different stakeholders talking to government, they get lots of pitches. And when you are in there making your pitch or having your conversation with government, proper context is important. If your scheduled meeting is on, let's say, the next provincial budget, be prepared to speak to that and talk to those sort of areas. Don't go off script. Don't go speak on something that's not kind of core germane to the meeting or issue at hand. And also with your meetings, as I said just a little bit earlier, of again, don't be afraid to start at the start, have a bit of time set aside for that introduction and just reintroduce you, the organization, the issues. And again, paint that picture for government of who you are, who the organization is, and what you're trying to achieve. And you may think you don't have to do that after a while, but I encourage you to do that almost every single meeting, up to have that. If they've heard of your issue, great, skip ahead, but always set that proper context and framework of who your organization is at a very high level before diving into that conversation with government. Be clear and concise. I think that goes without saying with any communication, as much as you can. Again, the amount of asks and pressures on government of don't use big complex terms or acronyms as much as possible. Again, just because you live and breathe the project and know it every day, don't assume the person on the other side of the table does. So break things out and keep your messages easy to understand, repeatable. I don't say it needs to be hard and fast of a rule of 3, but really have your key points really aligned into say 3 or 5. And so that it's clear the focus of what the project is, what you're trying to achieve, and then what the ultimate ask is. Doesn't have to be complex. You don't need a whole history of your organization or the project, of just quick Coles notes before getting into your key messages of what you're trying to achieve. So keep it simple, I think, is valuable for any kind of communication, but especially when talking to government. And again, the simplicity, the easy to understand, repeatable, that makes it easier for your stakeholders and your partners. If they can easily retweet or reshare the message, that makes it all the better. And additionally, if they can then are comfortable enough, if it's distilled to sort of those 3 key points, then it's easier for them if they see someone in the street, let's say, which unlikely in the COVID times, you have those bump-ins with elected officials or someone from government. You can then easily have your allies and champions rifle off sort of your 3 key priorities or key messages. So I'd encourage to find that simplicity in your messaging to government and to others. And not only keep them simple, but keep them consistent. You really, and again, I guess it goes back to the planning of what you're looking to achieve, that long-term arc. I don't think it, as you can understand, builds trust or goodwill if you go in one week asking for something and then the next week you completely change your tune. So be consistent. When you choose an issue, understand that it may take time and recognize that that path may take a while, but it's also just because you don't have success right away that you kind of throw it away or give up. Do your due diligence, do your planning, and be prepared to continue on. It's advocacy, I guess, is what I say, is not a one and done, stop and start activity. It's quite rare that, you'll go in, have one meeting, and it'll be perfect, let's do this. Usually government needs to have conversations with other stakeholders, others involved. And so be prepared to continue your message, keep it consistent. There'll be tweaks and bends along the way. But this isn't just a once a year kind of thing. You're going to have to add some consistency to it. And the last bullet there, I think the complexity of your challenges can crop up. And this, again, has maybe never come, I guess, more fast and furious to organizations such as government, where social media, again, the pace that information travels of one tweet or something like that can unveil information or change things or facts rather quickly. So in those cases, I think it's good to go back to, original principles, original goals. If questions are asked of what are you trying to achieve? If it's an area that's not really germane to your organization or your advocacy, you probably don't need to dive too far into it. Keep focused on your end goal, your end vision, and don't get drawn out, I guess, into areas that could take you off your focus. So I think that this maybe applies a bit more to companies in the private sector right now than kind of community organizations, as for example, something like the rail blockades that affected kind of a whole host of industries kind of, again, I don't think anyone could have predicted that at either the government or private sector level. So that sort of threw them for a loop and caused them to go back to their principles, what are their goals and visions. So something to keep in mind, maybe not as applicable to kind of a community advocacy lens, but again, go back to those principles, stay focused, stay consistent. And here, I think one thing to keep in mind as well, that again, on building that trust with government, as we like to say, bring solutions, not problems. And so when you're then got your advocacy plan, you're ready to engage with government, ready to have meetings with people, bring solutions to the table, I guess. Don't go in and just complain about the current state or what has. Have that vision, have those goals, have that research all in hand, have that flexibility, and come to the table with solutions. As I said, a lot of the time that government spend is on people asking for more funding or changes or things like that. So if you can come to them with a problem and several identified solutions, you're going to build a lot of trust. And so, as we like to say, bring solutions, not problems, to the table as often as you can. Again, the importance of it may not be a right away yes from government, but if you're coming there as a solution provider, you're more likely to get a very warm reception from them. As well, in all your interactions, again, is just as kind of I started with, you bring valuable knowledge and insights as local leaders. Remember, it's a two-way street of elected officials, again, are elected by constituents at the end of the day. They want to hear how things are going. They probably want to hear more from your groups, and you can act as a conduit, as a messenger back to government and providing that information, insights on the ground. So remember, it's a two-way street often, and that a great starting point of, if it's building a relationship with governments, your goal for 2021, and it ends up being that, you just connect every few months for a coffee and information sharing, that's invaluable, brings trust, and shows that you can be a solutions provider. And last bullet there, I'll just say to celebrate successes as well, of champion and be loud and proud when you do get successes. Just as it's tougher to cut through with social media and different news sources now, it's tougher, I think, than ever to get any message out, let alone positive ones. So when you are successful, be loud and proud about it. Offer to share with government the stage, help to spread the message, as they'll want to help push this out too. And be very loud and proud. I can encourage everyone to do that when you have those successes, as it's will be well received by government as well. Just to recap then, the action items of taking your plan, moving it into action: cast a wide net. So talk to multiple people in government. Don't just talk to one person. It's not one and done. Talk to multiple people, build champions inside the organization. Of course, you probably want them related to what you're trying to advocate for. If you're, talking to a MLA whose riding's hundreds of kilometers away from yours, that's probably not the best fit, but I'd encourage you to, cast a wide net. And as the saying a colleague of mine likes to use of that, if you go right to the top and you get a no, there's really no Supreme Court after that. So get those yeses, get those consensuses from other people within government and make them champions of your cause or your action. Keep it simple. A lot of messages going into government, so keep them simple, keep it repeatable. And again, this will help build goodwill with other stakeholders and lets them become champions easier. They can then again repeat the message clearly, and they can become champions and messengers of your cause. Consistency, again, I encourage people that, if a meeting doesn't go great or you don't see the result right away, don't throw in the white flag. These often take time, and to keep pushing, to keep consistent. But again, with the consistency of things are going to change, but don't throw everything out and completely change your tune and kind of complete a 180. It's not a good look to be all for, let's say, a park or a development one week and then to kind of change your tune the next week. Keep consistent and keep on message. And lastly, I would say bring solutions, not problems. Is just keep that framework in mind when you are going to government. Of a lot of times they're receiving complaints. This is bad. This is broken. And if you can come to them and say, okay, we've identified this as an issue, but here's ways to address it, you're going to receive a very warm welcome. And at the end of the day, I think, again, those 30,000 foot level ideas or thoughts, sometimes you can really find alignment. Like I said, this group, Economic Developers Association, wanting to create jobs, prosperity, wealth, I don't think there's anyone who doesn't want that. So you may get lost in I won't say lost or have conflicting views of how to get there. But at the end of the day, I think those key kind of principles and core ideas, which you can take from the start of your planning process, keep that in the back of your mind. And you can always go back to that. Of at the end of the day, your goals are most likely aligned with government at some level, and then find that alignment. And that can be a great bridge or plank to other areas. So to the kind of penultimate slide, I'll just say the quote of, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Encourage you to start thinking about advocacy at the very least, and to start doing a plan. As changes, these things don't happen unless there is a bit of a push or a bit of a voice. What issues or problems are out there in your community? Who can help you with that? And then bring those forward to government. I think you'll get a very receptive ear if you come off as a solutions provider and bring those forward. And I guess I live and breathe this stuff every day. So I guess I'm the converted, if you will, but I would just, encourage everyone as, the change doesn't happen unless someone puts their hands up and wants to make it happen. So with that being said, I'll kind of wrap my comments up and we'll maybe move to questions.